Well, there's no mistake. Tennessee recruiting is on a heater right now, but how good, numbers-wise, can this class be stacked up against the rest of the SEC? And, of course, some of college football's greats. More recruiting talk here on a Tuesday. Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. You can make Locked On SEC your second watch and listen here today when we're done with Locked On Vols because, hey, training camps for the most part are getting started this week. Tennessee's got Media Day today. Tennessee begins practice number 1 of fall camp tomorrow. We're going to get into 3 camp storylines in segment number 2, 3 key numbers from CBS Sports regarding Tennessee football in segment number 2 as well. You everydayers, thanks so much. This show could not be done without you. We'll get into your questions for the mailbag portion of the show in segment number 3. But we're going to have Matt Ray come on the show, my colleague over at VolQuest.com that is a recruiting insider covering the University of Tennessee. We're going to have him talk about the exciting weekend and maybe what's to come for this class of 2025 here in a matter of seconds. I want to give a shout out to our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more over at FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel.com to get started today. And we got a lot to get into. So without further ado, let's get into our conversation with Matt Ray, my colleague over at VolQuest.com, on what happened this past weekend and what's to come for the class of 2025. Here's Matt Ray. Matt, what a weekend for the University of Tennessee, recruiting 7th in the country right now at the time of this recording, 4th in the SEC, 2 more commits jumping in the boat, and Shady Hayward, the 4-star safety, and DeShaun Brain, the 4-star tight end that flipped from Oregon to Tennessee. Let's start with Brame. Not the highest ranked player in terms of the 2 that we're discussing, but what a priority. Tennessee pivoted to him when they needed another tight end in this class to pair with Jack Van Dorselaer. Tennessee was in great position. Oregon came swinging hard at the final hour, got his initial commitment, but it feels like, Matt, that Tennessee was never out of it. And shortly after committing to the Ducks, DeShaun was like, well, you know, I might have made a mistake. And ultimately he finds himself in Tennessee's class, and what an addition.
Yeah, I think he said it best himself. Like as after he committed and it kind of started to set in a little bit, he started to realize that he probably made the wrong decision. His heart had been in Knoxville. He had a really great relationship with Alec Ablin. And pretty quickly after the commitment, he was back in contact with Ablin, working on getting back out to Knoxville. That happened this weekend, and he ultimately flipped to the Vols on Sunday. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to Alec Ablin in this one, right? I mean, there were a lot of things that went into DeShaun Brain picking Tennessee. He loves the vertical attacking offense. He likes the way that they play 2 tight ends, you know, a lot throughout different games. But I think overall, Alec Ablin handled this recruitment very well. There were not a lot of people outside of Knoxville giving him much hope in the spring and into the summer as the official visits, you know, kind of come and went. But Tennessee was very much in this in the last few days leading up to the initial commitment to Oregon. And like you said, Oregon swung big and grabbed that initial commitment. But ultimately, the body of work that Ablin laid out over several months led to Brame being able to comfortably flip back to Oregon or flip back to Tennessee.
Yeah, what is he going to bring to the table? You know, whenever I was, you know, obviously, you know, reading up on him throughout the process and kind of looking like a likely Tennessee target, I kept thinking of Ethan Davis, you know, slot wide receiver, bigger guy, plays out in space. I know Charles Power kind of compared him to Holden Stays coming out of high school. What does he do best, and what are some things that, you know, Tennessee will work with him on when he gets to campus?
He works really effectively up the seam, a guy that, you know, has a really natural release, is a natural mover, and a really natural pass catcher for a tight end. You know, doesn't fight the ball like you see a lot of, and I think a lot of that comes because he is playing out in space so much at Derby there in Kansas. He's able to move around, catch the ball in a variety of different ways. And I think the biggest adjustment for him will be for what it is for a lot of tight ends in today's day and age, adding a little bit of extra weight, learning, you know, to be physical out there and in the C area and the blocking assignments and just continuing to improve in that phase. But as a pass catcher and a route runner, DeShaun Brain is very natural. He wants to get better at the top of his route and improve that route tree even more. That's the conversation that he had a lot with Alec Ablin throughout the recruiting process. That's something that they touched on during the official visit, something they've touched on a lot throughout. And he believes Ablin can maximize his ability as a route runner to create even more separation, but really already a mismatch for safeties and linebackers.
So Tennessee gets the flip for DeShaun Brain, four-star tight end, away from Oregon to Tennessee. That was on Sunday. On Saturday, it was longtime priority target safety, four-star Shady Hayward, that went ahead and officially joined the class. And Matt, you dropped the note I mentioned on the show yesterday, but you dropped the note on the General's Quarters over at VolQuest.com over the weekend that this has been inevitable. It was never an if, it was a when. He wanted to make it official. He's long been in great standing with Tennessee dating back to the spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Shady Hayward called me in March, like at 10:30. I think I was probably already in bed maybe, but he called me around 10:30 early in March and told me, we had a conversation, talked about several different things, and he told me, he said, I'm going to Tennessee. He felt very strongly about it at that time, and we talked about a variety of different things, official visits and whatnot, and he wanted his family to experience the official visit process. But Tim Banks made a strong impact on Shady Hayward in November when the Vols offered him in person when he got to town. They made him feel special that day. They continued to make him feel like a priority. And, from kind of that point moving forward, he had a great relationship there, saw what they wanted to do with him. And really, Eric, he did take those official visits. And I do think Georgia did at least give him something to think about for 48 to 72 hours. But I think it was always Tennessee for Shady Hayward. He kept coming to town, and every time he got there, he just continued to remember that feeling that he got that day back in November. And the Vols ultimately won out here in the end for a guy that is as dynamic as of a safety prospect as there is in this class, in my opinion.
We'll get to some of the big targets still left out there for Tennessee, but man, you look at this class and it's starting to really come together. There'll be a few additions, to cap off the class between now and December. Of course, there'll be some fall evals, and Tennessee will likely have to work to keep some of these players. That's the same for every single recruiting class, but 20 commits, 7th in the nation, 4th in the SEC at the time of this recording. And it's not all about top 10, top 5 class, all that type of stuff. For me, it's about, can you be in the top 3 range in the SEC? Because if you're top 3-ish in the SEC, you're certainly top 5 in the country. And This class, it just really, really looks good on paper, led by your highly rated 4-star quarterback in George McIntyre. Great at the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, in my opinion. Good at pass rusher. Some playmakers at wide receiver. Travis Smith jumps out. Redarius Jackson. You get 2 tight ends that you want. I mean, you can go on and on down this list. This class, right now, it's the best class Josh Heupel's assembled, of course. It just looks like it checks all those boxes. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at it, if you go position by position for Tennessee and kind of what they've done, George McIntyre was the guy at quarterback, and you got him. You go to wide receiver, Redarius Jackson, Joakim Dodson. Tennessee was prioritizing those guys in state very early on. They wanted to get those done early. They felt like that was possible to do, and they got those 2 guys. I think Joakim Dodson, he's probably a little overlooked in this class right now. He's going to get a different type of usage at Baylor. He's going to play a different kind of competition. And if he shows up on tape this fall like he has throughout his high school career, you're talking about a guy that could get a rankings bump. And then Travis Smith and Redarius Jackson, those are the types of receivers that Tennessee covets. Tennessee entertained and recruited Caleb Cunningham and Jamie French and those types of guys. But really, at the end of the day, Travis Smith becomes that guy for Kelsey Pope. They were able to land him over strong pushes from Georgia and Alabama. You move to tight end, and Alec Ablin gets those top 2 guys in DeShaun Brain and Jack Van Dorselaer. As initially there was a plan to take one number shifted around. You needed a second tight end in this class, and you landed 2, not just 2 quality bodies, but your top 2 guys at the position there. So really at that skill grouping, it was huge for Tennessee already in this cycle. And then I think you hit on it as well, Eric. You land a guy like Marion Dye as a pass rusher. That's a guy that has been top 50 kind of throughout this cycle and is going to probably stay in that range. Just a freaky top guy that has so much untapped potential. Charles House is a longtime target for you. You land him. Ethan Utley, a longtime target for you. You land him. Suddenly, the trenches on the defensive side of football are starting to look different. If you would have told anybody in, really outside of Knoxville coming into June 14th, that weekend there, that Tennessee could land Doug Utu, along the offensive line and really add to that class, I don't think anybody would have taken – I think anybody would have been trying to take your money for a bet. And then Tennessee goes into that weekend. They land Doug Utu. They land Nick Moore. The offensive line class is shaping up to be really good for Tennessee as well. And then at defensive back, you don't – you have Shady Hayward, but you don't have those highly rated guys in terms of Dylan Lewis and Tyler Redmond and Trey Poteet. But – guys that Tennessee covets, Dylan Lewis and Tyler Redmond, there's a reason that they were committed so early on, is because they were top priorities for Tennessee in this cycle. They love the length. They love the athleticism. Tennessee goes up north and gets Trey Poteet, a guy that they feel like can play all 5 positions. They've got a very versatile secondary class. And then, very recently in the month of July here, you beat out Georgia for Christian Gass, a guy that surged into the top 100 of the On 300 rankings, a guy that Georgia prioritized at linebacker. That's a statement win on the recruiting trail. So you're right, Eric. Josh Heupel's best class to this point, and a class that's shaping up to be really, really good.
And then we'll end on this one. Certainly a couple of different targets still out there. 4-star cornerback Onis Cannonbody, Tennessee, Florida State. He'll have a decision, I would imagine, in early fall, right? Late August, early fall.
Yep.
Couple of flip candidates, Jaden Perlotti. We'll see if Tennessee can get any of that momentum back. The Oakland running back, we'll see if that ship has sailed. Josh Petty, Juan Gasson. But, you talk about these number one targets, these coveted at each position. The one at offensive tackle, of course, is none other than 5-star offensive tackle, David Sanders. And on campus again this past weekend, as we end our conversation, the latest with David Sanders and where Tennessee kind of stands in all this.
Yeah, I think as Austin always alluded to over at the General's quarters, if David Sanders was going to go on a visit, he always felt like Tennessee would get a visit, and that happened. I think it was good for Tennessee to get him back again. He'll make a decision on August 17th, and I think this is another visit that went well. Continue to feel like Tennessee's done a very good job with David Sanders and his family, and the Vols head into this kind of home stretch in a very good spot for him. I don't think you can discount any program that's in the running here down the stretch when you look at an elite prospect like that. But, you're pushing towards a top 5 class. You need a guy like David Sanders to kind of put the bow on that if you're Tennessee. And, the Vols are coming out of the summer here in a good spot for the elite talent.
Want to say about our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop, and football is right around the corner, so we're kind of in this lull right now of only a couple things to choose from, but there's still so much going on over at FanDuel Sportsbook. They let the sports keep going whenever I want. All you have to do, all I have to do, and all you have to do is open up the app over at FanDuel.com, FanDuel Sportsbook on the App Store. Dream up bets anytime that you're in the mood. And this summer, only FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. Not just new customers, not just existing customers, but all customers over at FanDuel.com here today. You can go ahead and check it out, and you can get hooked up with a daily boost or a bonus. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, it's the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. FanDuel, it is America's #1 sports book, and FanDuel, it's where you can make every moment more. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so we get into fall camp, and I wanted to kind of go over 3 of my key storylines that we're looking out for. Practice begins tomorrow. Media day is today, and we're going to have updates over right here on Locked On Vols, of course. We'll have practice observations and all that more at VolQuest.com and Locked On Vols podcast. But it's that time of the year where, hey, it's go time. And fall camp, day number 1 is today. And we talk about the nitty-gritty. We talk about the position battles. We talk about the question marks, the strengths, the schedule. We've talked about all that for nauseam over the offseason, but here are some of my 3 storylines that I'm going to be looking out for more than pretty much anything over the course of the next month for Tennessee football practice. That's happening right now. And then 3 key numbers to watch out the door here for this segment from CBS Sports. My number one storyline is obviously Nico Iamaleava. He's the number one storyline for you, I would imagine. He's the number one storyline for Tennessee football. He's the number one storyline from a national perspective as well. Is Nico going to be the real deal? I mean, again, we won't know this until we get in and we see him play week after week after week and kind of put, tape on top of tape on top of tape and game on top of game on top of game. But, over the course of this training camp, how does he command the offense? How is he looking from a, stature-wise in the pockets, his mechanics, his turnover ratio in fall camp? What's he look like in the scrimmages? How is he commanding the huddle, the offense, and not just all that on the offense side of the football? How is he commanding this football team? Because he is a reserved person by nature. He's not a very vocal guy, but you're the quarterback of the Power 4 football team here at the University of Tennessee in the Southeastern Conference. You are the leader of the football team. This football team is yours. So how does Nico respond to all those challenges? I'm going to be intrigued to watch over the course of the next month here in fall football camp, but it's officially Nico time in Tennessee. Fall camp, he is the clear-cut number one guy. He is the quarterback. He's no longer a redshirt. He's no longer a backup to Joe Milton. He's no longer a number one overall recruit in the country. This is his team. So I'm going to be looking out for Nico, number one. Number two, of course, is the secondary. So many questions we have. I think we know kind of the pecking order at cornerback, with Ricky Gibson, Jamal McCoy, new transfer coming in. The Temple transfer, Jalen McMurray, is going to be in that conversation as well. Where does Jordan Matthews, who's had a really, really good summer, it sounds like, where is he in this conversation? Who are some other guys, maybe some guys in the freshman class like Caleb Beasley, who came in a little later, was a mid-semester early enrollee, was at practice for a day or two and then got hurt. So, where is he in terms of the pecking order, now healthy in fall camp as a true freshman? But we kind of have an idea about cornerback. We kind of have an idea about the star position where it's going to be Jordan Thomas and then Boo Carter knocking on the door, a true freshman. What we have questions about is at safety. You got the feeling that they like and they trust Andre Turrentine. Jacoby Thomas stepping up from MTSU, a lot of experience under his belt, not at this level. You bring him in here for a reason. Is he going to be a starter? What about John Slaughter, now a second-year guy in the system and a highly touted prospect, a priority target in the class of 2023 on the defensive side of the football? Where is he in this conversation? What about Will Brooks, who is the walk-on who played a lot last year due to injuries, and that Tim Banks has the trust of Will Brooks? How does all that shake out? And my question is, if Boo Carter during the course of fall camp, if he is the real deal who we think he is, maybe he takes the star position, and if so, can that open up a spot for Jordan Thomas at safety and help with the depth at the safety position? I don't know. I'm intrigued maybe more than anything to see how this secondary is going to kind of shake out. But what we do know is entering fall camp, entering spring practice a couple of months ago, it's a complete overhaul. 5 starters are gone from last year's 2023 Tennessee football secondary. 5 new starters are coming in. What's that pecking order going to be like? Are they going to be more athletic? Are they going to be more skilled? Is this going to be an upgrade? Is this going to be a work in progress? I think it's very much going to be a work in progress, but I do believe that the floor is higher for this group compared to the groups that have been here in the past couple of years. So the secondary is number 2 for me. Number 3 would be tight end. And again, we're getting into position battles and all that, but Tennessee needs to find out who the left guard's going to be. But no matter what, Tennessee's going to have a guy outside of Sham Yamaro, unless he takes the job, which he'll be in consideration for sure. But you're going to have a guy that's going to start at that position that's played a lot of football for Tennessee. Andre Keurig, the Texas transfer last year, started the first couple of games, then he was out for a season-ending injury. He has the confidence of his position coach and Glenn Ellerby. If it's Andre Keurig that starts at left guard, well, we know what he's about. We've seen him play in this offense. If it's Jackson Lampley, who's a fifth-year guy who's been here for a while and knows the offense, played a lot last year as well, we know what he's about. If it's Dane Davis, who's the swing man, we know what he's about. He started and played a ton of football for Tennessee throughout his career. So, we have an idea what left guard is going to be. We have no idea about tight end. And that's where my number 3 storyline is entering fall camp. You love the makeup of Ethan Davis. Can he stay healthy, and what's he look like as the guy? You bring in Holden Staves from Notre Dame. How is he equipped to this offense? How is he adapted to this offense, the tempo and everything that is asked of a tight end in this offense for Josh Heupel? What about Miles Kitselman, who I think came on and raised a lot of eyebrows and did really, really well in spring, didn't really have a role for Alabama. It's been a lifetime reserve, but he has played in this league. He knows what this league, the expectations are. He knows the caliber of defensive linemen and linebackers and safeties that are across the ball on that side of the football. He's going to have a role in this team. What's the split going to be in terms of snap count for those three? For the first time under the Josh Heupel regime, Jacob Warren's not here to play tight end. So I'm really, really intrigued to see what the tight end position is going to look like on the offensive side of the football. And we're going to have to monitor that and check out the course of that throughout, the weeks here in fall camp. So number 1 is Nico. Number 2 is the secondary. Number 3 is tight end. Those are my 3 storylines entering fall camp that I'm going to be paying attention to the most. And of course, media days today and practice number 1 is coming up tomorrow. The second half of this segment, or the last couple of minutes of this segment, I do want to get in, touch base on an article over at CBS Sports. We've got the mailbag questions coming up in segment number 3, but an article over at CBS Sports where it lists 3 key numbers to know about every SEC team entering 2024. Scroll down here and you see Tennessee. Preseason SEC poll is at number 7, voted on by members of the media. The first number that's highlighted by this article over at CBS Sports is 204.8. 204.8. Tennessee led the SEC in rushing with 204.8 yards per game last year for the first time since 1999 with running backs Jamal Lewis and Travis Henry. Of course, we know about Jalen Wright and his emergence. We know about the experience of Jabari Small. We know about the change of pace back and the third head to that 3-headed monster in Dylan Sampson. Tennessee had it going on in terms of running backs, last year. And that's another question that I didn't really even write down, but it's very much a question. What does this running back room look like with Dylan Sampson leading the charge? What's the health and availability to begin fall camp for Cam Seldon? Because he's inexperienced, and of course the guys behind him and Deshaun Bishop and Khalifa Keith and freshman Peyton Lewis, who missed spring, was here in spring, but missed with an offseason procedure. Very much inexperienced behind Dylan Sampson. What is this run game going to look like for Tennessee that's always been so good under Josh Heupel? It's where this offense starts, and it's coming off leading the SEC in rushing this past year. Will it lead the SEC in rushing this year? Will it be a top half of the league in rushing? It better be one of the top 8 teams in terms of running the football in the Southeastern Conference, because if it's not, in my opinion, you're in trouble. 204.8 yards per game. Tennessee led the SEC in rushing last year. What's that? How close will Tennessee be to that number this year? It's worth noting as well, for the 3 years under Josh Heupel, Tennessee has averaged 200 yards or more on the ground every single game in all 3 years. So that's worth noting. I think it's going to be more of the same than more different, in my opinion, though a lot of questions to be answered. The second number, 20. 20-6 is the record over the last 2 seasons, and that's tied for the most wins in a 2-year span for Tennessee since 2003 and 2004. Obviously, you have a 10-win regular season. You have a Orange Bowl victory in 2022, 11 wins in 2022 that overcompensates for a step back to an 8-4 regular season that ended 9-4 overall with a Citrus Bowl win. Fact of the matter is Tennessee's winning big-time bowl games. Tennessee is winning in a quote-unquote down year, 8 wins in the regular season, which you would have given anything for during the decade of dysfunction and, decade plus of dysfunction that was Tennessee football for quite some time, through the Dooley, through the Butch, through the Pruitt years. Okay, you would have given anything for 8 wins in the regular season. That means the floor is higher. Tennessee football has gotten so much better, and that record over the last 2 years reflects that. 20-6, the record over the last 2 seasons, tied for the most in Tennessee football since 03-04. Expectations, of course, are understandably high for Tennessee, who's looking to secure its first college football playoff berth in the first year of the 12-team playoffs. The final number here that I'll highlight is 8.5. 8.5, 93 passing touchdowns to 11 interceptions under Josh Heupel. That TD to interception ratio of 8.5 is the best in FBS since 2021. The first year Tennessee was graced with Josh Heupel to be the head coach. Hendon Hooker was incredible. Joe Milton was a very much above average quarterback compared to what Tennessee's had in really the last couple of decades here. I'm not saying that he's one of the best in the country. I'm not saying he's one of the best in the SEC. We're not having that conversation. But the quarterbacks that Tennessee's had, really in this century, of course, there been some pretty good ones. Tyler Bray, Eric Ainge, Casey Clausen. You had Josh Dobbs and, of course, Hendon Hooker. But in the last dating back really to 2011-ish, Joe Milton's been one of the better ones because there's been some really, really bad quarterbacks here. We know that. My point is, through Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton, Tennessee's protected the football. 93 passing touchdowns to 11 interceptions. TD touchdown interception ratio, 8.5, which has been the best in FBS since Josh Heupel's been here. Again, I think it's going to be more towards that number than away from it with Nico Iamaleava. So some interesting numbers I want to throw out there that I found over at CBS Sports. 3 key storylines for Tennessee football heading into fall camp. And man, it is that time of the year, and I can't freaking wait, and I know you can't either. It is football time in Tennessee. It is fall camp time in Tennessee more than anything, and I thought you would enjoy that segment and that conversation. Hey, when we come back, we'll get into your questions, you everydayers who make this show possible. Get into your questions for the mailbag portion of the show. That is coming up next as we continue on here with a Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Are you taking that dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? Yeah, we still have a little bit of summer left. Just because football practice is back in session doesn't mean summer's over. With Ibotta, you can get cash back on all your purchases, so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is the free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys for the kids, so you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, maybe the flight that you've been eyeing for a vacation, or the fancy dinner that you have been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account. PayPal or gift cards, simply add offers in the app, upload your receipts, and voila, the money is yours. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or in Google Play, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back by using, again, the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play Store, App Store, using the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. And another proud sponsor of the show is Factor Meals. Warmer, sunnier days, they're calling for us to fuel up. And with Factor's no prep, no mess meals, you can meet your wellness goals in time for summer's end, with the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto Friendly. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals. I'm going to say that again. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready in just 2 minutes. Those are the big things for me. Again, never frozen, they're fresh, and they're ready in 2 minutes. No matter how busy you are, you guys know I'm running all over the place. I'm doing Locked On Vols. I'm working VolQuest.com. I've got Rivalry Thursday. Football season and baseball season are my busiest times of the year, and it takes up about 10 months of the year. And I benefit from these Factor meals. Plus, you can as well. 35 different meals to choose from. 60 add-ons every single week. You have flavors to explore. You can make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious offense. Plus, you can meet your nutritional and your wellness goals with Factor. I'm telling you, I've used them before. I'm using them now. I can't endorse them anymore. You can check them out over at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the promo code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. Again, that is code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Check it out for yourself. That is factormeals.com. All right, time for the mailbag edition of the show. Really, really do appreciate you everydayers for making us your first listen, your first watch. And as we conclude this very, very, very busy Tuesday show, I do want to answer some of your questions. So we'll start with some of the YouTube questions. Patrick says, what's going on with Nathan Leacock? Never hear his name mentioned, never hear him talked about anymore. I don't believe it was Patrick, but somebody did actually comment on my show yesterday on the YouTube channel saying, like, can we stop labeling kids as bust after their redshirt year? And he was referring to Nathan Leacock, and I might have used that term, but what I meant by that, if I can add some context, is you look at where Nathan Leacock was viewed in recruiting, and he was a steal in terms of what Tennessee did. Early evaluation proved to be a great evaluation. On3 had him as a top 100 player. My point is, if you look at where Nathan Leacock is now, though there's still a lot of time left. Never want to write anybody off, after just 1 year in the program. But if you look at where he is in the pecking order, wide receiver, and you look at where he was viewed as terms of recruit, a late riser, he would be considered a bust more so than a hit in that recruiting class right now. Because Patrick, the answer is, right now he's way down in the pecking order. I like Nathan Leacock. I covered his recruitment. Good kid, good family. I'm rooting for him. But right now he's down in the pecking order. He is behind Caleb Webb, Chaz Nimrod. He is behind newcomers like Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley. He is behind the transfers who have come in since he's committed to the class, and Dante Thornton and Chris Brazel. And, of course, he's behind Squirrel White and Brew McCoy. I mean, he's down the pecking order right now. So unless he has a really, really good fall camp or there's injuries at this time, I don't see him contributing an awful lot this year. But also you hope that he can continue to work and get better because he does have a nice skill set. I like that a lot. UT_Pumpkin says, with the NCAA moving their football scholarships to 105 by adding 20 additional, how is this a benefit in the NIL era? To be completely honest, I don't necessarily know how to exactly answer that question. I think the biggest difference is not just for football, it's across the athletic department. Baseball's getting, baseball's adding 23 more, I think, going up to 34. Basketball is adding, I think, 2 more. Football, of course, is adding 20 more to get up to 105. Of course, this is from the House settlement. Wouldn't go into effect until next year, I believe. But anyway, the biggest caveat from this, or the biggest difference is it's almost going to eliminate some walk-ons. Not every program has to give the full allotment of scholarships, but what this means is you cannot have, for football example, you get 105 scholarships now, you can't have more than 105 players on your team. Right now, you have like 85 players on scholarship, but you have like 110 on the team or something like that, maybe 105. With this new thing into effect, your roster is capped at 105. For baseball, your roster would be capped at 34. And I'll be the first to tell you guys, Tennessee has 50 players on their roster this past season. Now, only 36 were on the active roster. You only had 11 scholarships in baseball, so baseball is going to see the biggest difference in this. But that means your roster's capped there. And that's going to eliminate a lot of walk-ons, which I think walk-ons are some of the greatest stories and some of the best thing about college athletics. And I would never want to do away with walk-ons. So I'll be intrigued to see kind of how this works. Now, in terms of name, image, and likeness, you're still going to reap the benefits of what your name, your image, your likeness brings. So if you have a big-time following, if you have on social media, if you have if you're marketable in terms of your local market here in Knoxville or from a national brand, you're still going to make your NIL be worth your time, if you will. So that's still going to be a factor in recruiting and certainly when you get on campus. But the biggest thing with these additional scholarships is it's going to wipe out a lot of the walk-ons, and I really, really don't like that. Again, programs do not have to choose to be a full allotment scholarship. So again, football can choose to only do 100 scholarships, and then they can choose to bring in 5 walk-ons to get that 105. Baseball could choose to have 30 players on scholarship and then have those 4 slots available for walk-ons. And with revenue sharing and paying players, which is coming down here soon, maybe you see more schools kind of do that, leaving a couple of spots open that way to help, with the revenue sharing. I don't know. There's a lot more questions than answers right now. Let's go to Corey. Corey says, how many top 100 players does Tennessee have committed in this class? Well, if you look at just the on-3 ranking specifically, George McIntyre is the number 74. Okay. Marion Dye is at number 36. Travis Smith's at number 59, excuse me. Shady Hayward's at number 75. Rodarius Jackson's at number 83. Christian Gass is number 85. So that's 6 players right there. If you look at the industry comparison rankings, that's 6 for the on-3. If you look at the industry comparison rankings, you got George McIntyre that's at number 50. Douglas Utu's at number 53. Marion Dye that's at number 70. Travis Smith that's at number 81. And then so you got 4. So the on-3 industry rankings, you got 4 from this class. On-3 specifically, you have 6 players in this class who are considered top 100 prospects. And then Mr. Jones says, do you think the Heupel to Nico headset communication will allow the offense to operate even faster than it did in 2022 with Hendon Hooker? At first, no, because it's new. because Tennessee has a system. Josh Heupel has a system. You have the three Alvin and the Chipmunks over there with the red, the green, and the blue, the signaling in signs and all that. At first, I do not believe it will, but it's only going to help. It's going to help more on defense, in my opinion, much more on defense than it will on offense. But I don't think it's going to take some time getting used to, but I don't think it's going to be a bad thing when Tennessee ultimately decides to use it. A couple more here as we end our show. Jared says, if there's one player from each position on the team that you, as an opponent, wouldn't want to go up against, when you look at their body as well as their eyes through the face mask, they're just scary, intimidating, or just look outright tough, who are you picking and why? I'm not going to do quarterback because I don't want to do that one. Running back, Cam Seldon. Offensive line, probably Javonte Spraggins. Tight end, who cares? Defensive line, Elijah Simmons. Defensive line, James Pierce. Linebacker, Aaron Carter. Defensive back, Andre Taranto. No. Defensive back, probably Boo Carter. Probably Boo Carter. Those are some guys that I think kind of look intimidating, and certainly I wouldn't want to face. Aaron asked, what would it take for James Pierce Jr. to win the Heisman? Also, if I personally think the toughest stadium rankings is laughable. We talked about that on the show a couple of weeks ago from over at ESPN. So what's your top five? In terms of what James Pierce would take for him to win the Heisman, I mean, for anybody not named a quarterback to win the Heisman, it's got to be just an unworldly year. So we're talking like, in my opinion, gosh, man, like 15 sacks and 25 to 30 TFLs, in my opinion. I mean, it's got to be something huge up there because it is a quarterback award, right? It shouldn't always be a quarterback award, but it is a quarterback award. My top five, one would be Neyland, some bias there. Two would be LSU. Number three would probably be the Swamp. So three would be Florida for me. Four would be I don't think Sanford Stadium is that good, but I covered a game in 2022 where it was so loud I couldn't even think. I'm not going to have Georgia in there, but Georgia should get some honorable mention. Bryant-Denny in Alabama, I think, is the most overrated stadium out there. Probably Kyle Field would be in there, Texas Tech. And then number five, in terms of if we're talking overall, probably Ohio State. Probably Ohio State. So a lot of those in there. And again, this is subjective. Everybody can answer the way they want to answer, but those are, from my experiences, are probably would be my top five. Michigan would be in there for sure. Clemson would be in there when they were good, in my opinion. But LSU, 1 Neyland, 2 LSU, 3 Florida, 4 Ohio State, then 5 probably Texas A&M would kind of how I would go, and I would rank that. Looks like we have one more question, and it's going to be from Robert. Robert asks, summer's officially over. I need to know who the big gainers were. Once camp starts and it's about maintaining, who are the freaks, lift kings, speedsters? Give me deadlifts, bench press 40 times, most mass added over the summer. Robert, I know you're a lifting freak, dude. I don't have all those numbers. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll get a better idea when I get over there. I mean, I've been doing baseball, and I haven't been over there, to talk to a lot of the coaches during the recruiting months of the summer because I've been doing baseball. But I can tell you, everybody's pumped up about Larry Johnson. He had a great summer. Everybody's pumped up about Caleb Herring. He put on a lot of weight. Speed-wise, I mean, it's your normals. I mean, it's your Squirrel Whites. Boo Carter's quicker than fast, but speed-wise, it's your Squirrel Whites. I think Dylan Sampson's very, very quick. Jordan Ross, somebody described Jordan Ross physically looking as a freak, that during one of the summer months he was at like 245, and he looks bigger than that. Heard a lot about Jeremiah's Hurd this summer as well. Jesse Perry, maybe I'll get some specific notes, if you will, but those are some of the big ones. Elijah Simmons is always a freak just because everything he can do with the weight that's on him. Cam Seldon, though he's been banged up a little bit, Cam Seldon is certainly viewed as a freak. But I'll ask that question as we get over there for practice this week, and hopefully I'll give you some more. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. We're a part of Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Make Locked On SEC your second listen here today. We'll come back with tons and tons of notes from Tennessee Media Day to kick off fall practice. The camp season is here, guys. We got you covered from every single angle right here on Locked On Vols. Thanks so much. We'll do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.